Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Last week on Estate Sale Blues, I took a look at Aloro from the Super 7 Thundercats Ultimates. I mentioned Chilla, and that I'm really hoping that they will do more figures, and the day the episode came out, I saw the announcement that Luna and Amok are getting made, and Chilla came in the mail. So Aloro was the first Lunatak to be released. These guys were villains created for the later seasons of Thundercats. They were really cool new villains to kind of shake things up, so it wasn't always just fighting Mumra. And it was a band of bad guys that all worked together. They were more intelligent, they had more powers, they just seemed like a bigger threat. And they never got toys. There was a toy of Red Eye, I believe, that was prototyped but never released. So this is the first time we're really getting them in figure form, and that's one of the great things about the Super 7 Ultimates lines. We get a lot of really cool characters that have never had figures before. Some of them I'm buying, some of them I'm skipping, but I am here for the Lunataks. So, like I said, Aloro came out. Chilla just got delivered. She had been pre-ordered. And they announced that Luna, the leader, and the diminutive, the small character, who rode on the back of Amok, a really large character from that group, is getting a figure in the Ultimates line. And I'm super excited they're coming together. I loved that dynamic. I'm sure that was a pain for the toy manufacturers, and maybe one of the reasons why we didn't get Lunataks figures. They made such diverse figures. So Chilla and Aloro are more standard-sized characters. Tugmug, Amok, Red Eye are all much larger characters, and LJN had sort of downsized some of the larger characters, and they had also made the Berserkers, which were more oversized figures. But this was just sort of an unusual thing, probably, for them to design and market and everything, where so many of the villains needed to be oversized. So Luna and Amok are part of Wave 11, which are up for pre-orders now. This includes the Lunatak duo, the Royal Thunderian Guard. This is a Thundercats-based army builder. They can protect your cat's lair. Robert Bill. We have been wondering where the Burbles are, and I guess they wanted to get Snarf and Snarfer out of the way before they did more of the little sidekicky characters. I'm sure we'll get more Burbles down the road, since they have parts, some of the parts here. There are about 3 sort of named Burbles, and then lots of extra ones. I was wondering if they were going to do a Burble multi-pack, the way they did the Reptilian guys. They did like an army builder for the mutants. And I wondered if they were going to do that with the Burbles, and maybe they still will with some of the other ones, but they figured maybe Robert Bill would sell well enough that he could be a standalone. We'll have to wait and see what Super 7 has planned there. And the fourth figure from this wave is Cloudus. Cloudus is the father of Lion-O. His character was redesigned for the 2011 Thundercats, the more anime-style Thundercats, and in that series, he was voiced by Larry Kenney, who voiced Lion-O in the original series, and I believe Cloudus in the original series. He's the one that I'm on the fence about. I'm definitely getting Luna. I'm on the fence about him. I can live without the Royal Guards. I'm definitely going to order Robert Bill, and Cloudus I'm trying to decide. But I've definitely scaled back on this line. I used to buy every figure from every wave. And Thundercats is a brand I really enjoy, but it is not probably in my top 3 brands. So at this point, between having most of the vintage figures and a ton of these Ultimates, I'm just starting to see the end of that line coming up for me. We got to check out Chilla. So one of the interesting things about the character designs in Thundercats in general is that the Thundercats are fairly humanoid characters with some animal traits, whereas the mutants, the bad guys, are very animalistic but stand upright. And the Lunataks have sort of a range to them, with Chilla probably being the most humanoid or Thundercat-like, and then they go more bizarre proportioned and less humanoid as they go down the line. Chilla was very memorable because she had ice powers, she was in a lot of episodes. I feel like her and Alora had the most character development beyond the leader, Luna. This figure is really nicely sculpted. She has her moon chest, like bands and straps. She has her skirt, which is a little bit more rigid than some of the Thundercats figures' skirt pieces are. Her cape, interestingly enough, is a cloth good with a wire in there. That's pretty fun for being able to pose her with that blowing in the wind. It looks really nice. It's got like icicle design to it. It's purple on the inside. There probably was just going to be too much paint going on with this, with it being 3 colors. They have not done a lot of cloth goods in this line, but there have been versions of Mumra with both plastic capes and cloth good capes. I mentioned with Jaga the other day, in the previous episode, the Ghost Jaga has a hard plastic cape. Just overall, Chilla looks really great. I'm super excited to have her in my collection, and I am just fingers crossed we get all the Lunataks, because we'll now have, they're taking pre-orders for the 3rd, but we still need Tugmug and Red Eye, both of which are bigger figures. I'm just really hoping we get them all. Chilla has an alternate head with her mouth open. She comes with a little ice breath weapon that can be pegged into her mouth. These kind of things are always a little odd to me. They're kind of neat, but they're never like the right length if you're trying to take a photo. I think they display a little funny. So I probably won't use that head or that breath effect, but, you know, you can let me know if that's a thing that you're into. She comes with a little, what looks like an ice ring that you could wear, maybe on your pinky finger. This is probably like an ice collar that she puts around a Thundercat to silence them in an episode. I'm thinking, it's been a while since I've watched Thundercats. She has a weapon or a bottle. Again, these things are kind of tricky. There's definitely like a ring on one end and a cap to it. It almost looks like like a bat. She has a small little satchel and a couple of bottles, perhaps poisons or mind control equipment. She has an array of hands with like scratching, clawing fingers, pointing fingers, accessory holding hands, and she comes with a little energy effect that can plug onto a finger like she's shooting a little zap. That's the kind of thing that I'm more likely to display than the breath weapon. Overall, pretty excited about that figure. I haven't done a lot of toy news on Pegwarmers lately. That used to be a very standard segment, and there were some articles recently that I saw that I wanted to touch base on. Adults flocking to the toy aisle even more than preschoolers. Adults, for the first time in history, are spending more money on themselves than they're spending on preschool kids, or the sales of adult-aimed toys are outperforming toys for little kids. It's a weird cultural shift we're in, and I assume, personally, that this is a result of the 80s and the deregulation and my generation, our generation, being a little bit more obsessed with these characters and these products, being inundated with the cartoons, the comics, the toys, all in one big marketing power punch, than in previous generations. You know, the kids that grew up with Star Wars, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, right? Like that, anywhere in that spectrum, just has like a different attachment, I think, than the current generation does. Obviously, there's technology distracting kids from toys today, but there was video games distracting kids from toys when I was a kid. Apparently, 43% of adults had bought a toy product for themselves in the past year. This statistic includes trading cards, Squishmallows and plushies, Lego, and sports toys. It doesn't even mention action figures and collectible things like that. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We are collectors. We're people that are buying the prop replica helmets and the HasLab toys because we collect toys. But there's a lot of people that don't consider themselves toy people, that are adult fans of Lego or have, a small collection of knick-knacky things based on Star Wars or Star Trek, or they collect Disney plush or something like that. And they're not thinking of themselves as toy collectors, not action figure collectors or Hot Wheels collectors, right? But that's another one. Hot Wheels. There's a lot of adults that buy Hot Wheels for themselves. And so I'm not that surprised by this whole thing. It'll be interesting to see if adults keep this title, and how the toy industry shifts to try to deal with this. Because you don't need the retail stores to sell to the adult collectors. You can do that from your Hasbro Pulse and Mattel Creations website. But will you have the minimum order then? You know, when they sell stuff at retail, Master Universe Origins has probably lasted longer because they sold the first several years at retail, and now they're just pumping out 1 or 2 figures at a time at the tail end. I don't know if that line would have lasted as long if it had just been a Matty collector Matty Creations type toy line from the start. The other article that caught my eye was Star Wars figure breaks record for becoming the world's most valuable vintage toy. This is a hand-painted rocket-fire Boba Fett prototype that should not have gotten out to the public. Supposedly was put in a box of trashed prototypes, and somebody scooped it out and kept it, for decades. It sold for $525,000 at auction, almost double what the previous Rocket-Fire Boba Fett prototype had sold for, surpassing the most expensive Barbie to ever sell at auction. This thing is an icon for toy collecting. The Rocket-Fire Boba Fett is legendary, and now it has this legendary price tag to, put it at the top of the heap. A holy grail item, never released in stores, so it is that rare that it deserves a price like that. It isn't, Blue Snaggletooth or even Yak Face, right? It is Rocket-Fire Boba Fett, a toy that everybody was waiting for their mail-order figure to come in, and when they got it, little note, sorry, we couldn't include the Rocket-Fire feature. There are people that swear they had one that could shoot as a kid, but it just isn't true. I mentioned in a previous episode, I have piles of toys that I'm behind on opening. I have G.I. Joe Classified stuff. I have Power Rangers Lightning Collection. That line is over, and I never finished opening all the figures I bought from it. I have Masters of the Universe Origins figures that I haven't opened, and some other odds and end things. So I have a few other toys that I want to kind of open up as a new-to-the-collection item here this week. And next week, I have something I'm trying a little bit different. It's toy adjacent, and I'm hoping you guys like it. You'll have to let me know in the comments of next week's video how you like that one. Alright, so next up, let's take a look at Masters of the Universe Origins Jitsu. I had Jitsu as a kid. I don't think I had him brand new from retail. I think I bought him at a yard sale. A lot of my Masters of the Universe figures I got from yard sales, or a lot of the early ones. Being that Masters of the Universe started in 1982, I was just too young for toys. But I was getting them towards the tail end, like the 86 lineup, when like the Snake Men came out and things like that. Those guys I was getting new. I had Battle Armor He-Man new for sure. I had Fisto and Stridor for brand new for sure. I don't remember all the ones that I got out of the package. Mossman, Buzz-Off. A lot of my favorite characters probably are my favorite characters because I had toys of them. But I'm pretty sure I got Jitsu secondhand. And eventually I got a Night Stalker, and loved to have Jitsu and Night Stalker battle Stridor and Fisto. I ripped the corner of his mini comic. It's one of the things I don't like about this line. The corners of the comics often get like stuck in the way they seal them in the package. Maybe it's just the way I open them, but I hate that. Not that this really matters that much. I'm not going to resell these for a bunch of money down the road. But I do try to save these mini comics, and I try to keep them in decent condition. So this is Challenge of Jitsu. Here's Jitsu out of the package. He has a very dark complexion. He's got the classic Jitsu armor that was shared with King Randor. He's got, of course, his chrome or vac metal karate chop hand, which looks great. And he comes with his scimitar-like sword. This does not have a finger guard on it, which I believe the vintage one did. Most of the Masters of the Universe accessories had finger guards on those original toys. There is no way of holstering the sword on his back, which the vintage did not have, but it's been incorporated into a lot of the more modern figures, like with Motu Classics. He looks great, though. Very traditional, very much what you would expect. I love the added articulation of these guys, and I love that the armor can come off without worrying about like snapping the tabs because they're flexible now. As a kid, I used to like to pop the armor off sometimes, or change them around, do different fun things with play. But these clamshell armors like Mechanic and Jitsu, I always got nervous about breaking the tabs off on them. They were harder to remove than, say, the strappy kind that He-Man and Skeletor came with. Overall, he's a really nice-looking figure. His wave was not super popular. He came, I believe, let's see, there's a cross-sell on the back of his mini-comic. He came in the same wave as Buzz-Off, the flesh-colored Stratos, the mini-comic Stratos, and perhaps the Sorceress, I guess. The Sorceress, to me, was a no-brainer. She was one you had to get, and Buzz-Off's one of my favorite characters. But that Stratos, man, I get why he was a peg-warmer, and even maybe Jitsu for modern kids. I don't know. I thought the vac metal arm would help him out with kids wanting to get him, but he's not as interesting as a lot of Masters of the Universe characters because he's just kind of a guy with a sword. The next figure I want to take a look at is Agent Helix from G.I. Joe Classified. This is one of the windowless boxed figures, so it's from a little while ago. Agent Helix came out as a character. She was part of a movie tie-in video game when the live-action G.I. Joe movies were coming out, and she became a real popular character. She had an action figure, she was in the video game, they did some comic book stuff with her, and she has almost a superpower in a way. She's not really a traditional army person. She has this battlefield awareness ability where she just sort of knows what's going on around her, sort of explaining why she can be a good shot and a good fighter and a good strategist and everything. It works. It works in the G.I. Joe world, I think, because there's already mysticism and sci-fi and stuff, but it is starting to border on superpowers in the G.I. Joe fandom. The figure's in a little tray, and you get a footlocker with her accessories. She's in her traditional yellow and gray uniform. She's got a combination of, like, white and dark hair, almost sort of the reverse of Rogue, where she has more white and less dark brown or less black hair. But it gives her kind of an interesting look. She's very different from the other female G.I. Joe characters, and that's good. You need a way for her to stand out from Lady J and Scarlet. Jinx has her own look with wearing the ninja gi and everything, but Helix is a pretty cool character, a pretty popular character, and they did a really nice job updating her for Classified. She already has a little bit of that aesthetic because she came out in the new Sculpt era, or the 25th anniversary or 50th anniversary era, so her figure always had a little bit more detail. They're transitioning or enlarging an already modern character. Helix comes with a small backpack that can be pegged on her back that has sheaths or scarabs for her swords. This is some of the best type of accessories you can pack with a figure like this, a way for her to hold her accessories. You can put them straight up and down, or you can cock it a little bit to the side if you want her to be able to kind of pull them over her shoulder a little bit easier. But it's nice for her to have a place to hold those. The other kind of key accessories for Helix is often two smaller, like, pistol-type weapons. One that she slings on each one of her hips, which, again, she comes with that, and that's awesome. It looks like there's, like, extra clips and things like that hooked onto her belt. They maybe aren't exactly the clips for these guns. Oh, maybe some of them are. But I like the fact that they're kind of setting her up for that. She comes with a pretty crazy-looking knife. This is sort of a survivalist knife. Not a bad accessory for her. Maybe not necessary since she already comes with two swords, but okay. And then we get into the weird. Helix comes with two little needle arms that can attach to her arms, making her look a little bit like General Grievous. If you're into the Warhammer 40,000 universe, she looks a little bit like Fabius Bile. She just has these, like, needles that can be attached to her. I don't know if they go right on her wrists or they're supposed to go up higher. I felt like I remember them being up higher in the artwork. But so she could fire her guns and still, like, fight in hand-to-hand combat, I guess. They are articulated, and they're kind of interesting. I think I will probably not display her with those. The swords and the pistols are enough for me. Great-looking figure. They did a really nice job with the deco and the sculpt and everything. Super happy to have Helix in my G.I. Joe Classifieds collection. The last thing I want to unbox today is the Super 7 Super Cyborg Krang Android. These Super Cyborg toys are large-scale robot figures that often have see-through chests. They did a Cobra Bat. They did the Megazord. They've done some of the Transformers. And I've passed on all of them until now. And the reason I wanted this Krang is this looks like a Krang's android body that will scale with the Super 7 Ultimate Ninja Turtle line. I have the regular Krang figure. He comes in the Bubble Walker. He's super cool. But this is the one way, as far as I know, that they're ever going to release a in-scale Krang's android body. And I've been dying to open him up and check him out. He's been here for quite a while. I was just sort of waiting for a chance where I could work him into an episode. After they did the Battle Android Trooper for G.I. Joe, they did a snake armor, and when you took the front off, it exposed like the upper torso of a Cobra Trooper, which the original 3 3/4 inch snake armor was like a little suit of armor you could put a figure in. The figure was non-removable. You couldn't put like an Ultimates Cobra Trooper in there. I think it did scale well. I thought about it, but I did ultimately pass. This is the first time I've bit the bullet on a Super Cyborg. So here is the Android body, and it is a not really brittle plastic, but feels more brittle than a standard action figure because it's hollow and hard, right? He has articulation at the head. He has articulation at the shoulders, which is limited by his shoulder pads, and no articulation anywhere else. So this is not as action-based of an action figure as a lot of things are. You can see he has like a little hamster wheel inside his chest with a little hamster glued in there. It seems almost like the hamster should be stationary and the wheel just spin around the hamster. I wonder if there's some sort of Ninja Turtle visual guidebook that ever showed a hamster in there. He's got some like levers and doodads inside his body area. There's a peg here. He does have articulation at the feet and at the wrists also. He's got some nice stitching and things. It looks really good. The Krang brain here, the guy inside, has lots of texture and lots of detail. He's really nicely sculpted. His tentacles are articulated, so he can kind of do what the vintage Krang did. And he's not really any larger than the vintage Krang. So I'm actually very interested in putting this Android body next to the vintage toy. I was hoping it was going to be a little bit bigger, so it would scale better with the Ultimates figures. The peg is like a half circle, a semicircle, and that is kind of tricky to insert. All right, there we go. I think I've got him pegged on there adequate. Nope, came right off. Hopefully that's adequate. Then he has a chest plate here. I'm going to try putting the chest plate on without Krang in there just to see what happens here. I am having some issues. I am definitely struggling here. Perhaps I'm doing something wrong, but it just doesn't want to close. I have a gap here. That was a struggle. And it's still not together down here, but it's not popping apart anymore. Huh. All right, I got them together. That should not be that difficult to do. I don't know if that will loosen up as I do it a few times, or if that's always going to be a struggle. You can just put Krang in here. Just reach in through the gap. So it's not like you have to take that plate off a whole lot. Let's see if I put his arms down, so he looks more like he's controlling the robot. Yes. I actually kind of like him out towards the front more instead of being pegged in the back. His hands are also removable. If you remember, the vintage line had both the large Android body and a more action figure size that had a miniature Krang inside. That one came with swappable hands, which kind of matched the cartoon a little bit. So this one comes with different hands, and they kind of match the coloring of that miniature toy with these bright blue hands. Because in the cartoon, I believe this radio that he uses to talk to Shredder was silver. But you could put the radio hand on. You could put on a pinchy claw. Chomp chomp. Right? Or he also comes with a Morning Star kind of weapon here, a ball and chain kind of thing. I am definitely not going to display him with any of these extra accessories. It's kind of fun that they came with him. But I will just use him as a regular Krang, most likely. Although, if he is pretty much the same size as the vintage Krang, then maybe I will want to display him with these just to make him stand out. Alright, I went and grabbed my vintage Krang so we could kind of see here. And I'm going to put them back to back. There's not much difference. I'm actually kind of disappointed. If I had realized that this was going to be so close in size, I never would have bought him. That's kind of disappointing. His chest's about the same size. His head's a little bit bigger. The brain inside his belly is maybe a little bit bigger. But overall, back-to-back height comparisons, he's not really not anything significant. That's a real letdown, actually. I've been looking forward to him. I saw him at New York Toy Fair. Of course, couldn't compare him to the vintage one when I was there. It does give me something to display with the Ultimates figures, to have something else besides just two of the vintage one, I guess. But I was really hoping that it was at least 10%, 20% bigger, to account for the size difference from the vintage Ninja Turtles to the Ultimates. I know it wasn't sold as an Ultimates Krang, so that was just kind of me being wishful there. And I could have measured the vintage Krang and looked at the measurements on the website. So this is a buyer beware kind of situation, but I am a little bit bummed. In the comments down below, let me know what you thought of the stuff I opened up, any of the news articles I talked about. Do you have any instances of where you bought something and were disappointed with the final result? Thanks for checking out this episode. Do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, share this video with a toy collecting friend, and thanks for hanging on the peg with me. share this video with a toy collecting friend, and thanks for hanging on the peg with me.